Hello, my name is Felicia Odamtten and I'm an economist here at the Resolution Foundation. I just wanted to thank the Scottish Economic Society for inviting me to speak on this important topic. In this video, I'm going to take a deep dive into the cost of living crisis, how it's impacting households, how the government have responded, and what the future outlook is for it. So what has happened so far? So before the invasion of Ukraine in February, the country was facing a cost of living crisis driven by rising energy prices. Since then, the outlook for living standards has become even more horrifying. This is largely because inflation is the big story for this year in the UK economy, with rates reaching its highest level in 40 years. As you can see, this chart shows actual inflation against inflation forecast by the Bank of England, which first started out in February of this year, a lot lower, shown by the purple line, and they've consistently increased it until to their latest forecast, which shows that inflation is expected to peak at 13% by the end of this year. And currently, the outturn, as shown by the black line, seems to show that we're on track for that. But to better understand the nature of the rapidly rising inflation in households, it's worth considering what factors are driving inflation. And that's largely because there have been catastrophic increases in energy bills, which is driving this inflation for this year and beyond. So from winter 2018 to winter 2021, the price cap averaged £1,150 a year. Since then, the price cap has increased to almost £2,000 in April of this year, and before government intervention was set to increase by just over £3,500 in October. And then it was projected to increase to over £4,500 in January of 2023. And this has largely been caused by rises in oil and gas prices. And as a result, this feeds through into higher energy bills for households. But energy bills aren't the only thing that's rising. As you can see from this chart, which shows CPI inflation from different household elements, there's also been large increases for other household items. This includes food, transport, household goods, clothing, etc., which just shows how challenging it is for households in this current cost of living crisis. The problem is that soaring inflation is primarily driven by rising energy costs and food costs, which are essential household items. And given that low-income households spend a larger proportion of their income on these essentials, they will be hit the hardest by these high prices. As it stands, the poorest tenth of households are experiencing an average inflation rate of 10.6% compared to 9% for the richest tenth. And that's the latest data from August inflation figures. In fact, as shown by this chart, the gap in disposable income between the highest and lowest deciles is set to exceed that which we saw following the financial crisis and is the highest gap we've ever seen. So what does this all mean for households? Well, without government intervention, families will be set to pay energy bills of £700, which is more than double the average bill they paid last January. So as you can see, this shows the typical energy bills paid by households, which has risen exponentially. And the big increases in these bills coincide with large energy consumption in the colder months, which is quite scary. Without intervention, this would have led to huge falls in living standards. So our projections show remarkable falls in the median household incomes both this year and next. Median household incomes were set to fall by 5% in 2022 to 2023 and 6% in 2023 to 2024. The 6% income fall for 23-24 would be the largest median income fall in a single year on record, and the 5% fall would be one of the largest falls on record, illustrating the scale of the issue. And we know that the current rate of real pay growth is at record lows. And when we look further ahead, we see that by the time real wage growth is expected to return in 2023, 2 decades worth of pay growth would have been wiped out. So once again, this just shows you and highlights the issue of the cost of living crisis. So with all this happening, how have the government responded? The next set of charts I'm going to show you shows the impact of policy measures across household income distribution. So let's start by the earlier packages announced by the Johnson and Sunak government. Earlier this year, the government announced a package in February which provided something for everyone. They announced that all households were to receive a £200 energy bill discount in October to be repaid over 4 years, and that all households, except students, living in properties in a council tax band A to D, would receive a £150 council tax rebate. The distributional impact of this was fairly even across the richest and poorest households. Then, in the March Spring Statement, they announced an increase in the national insurance threshold from over £9,000 to just over £12,500 in July. They also announced a 5p cut to fuel duty rates, as well as an additional £500 million for the Household Support Fund. Overall, this saw a larger proportion of the gains going towards richer households. However, as the crisis intensified, the government announced further, more comprehensive and targeted measures in May. They doubled the £200 rebate to a £400 grant, introduced £650 payments to households on mean-tested benefits, an additional £300 for all pensioner households, and an extra £150 to individuals in receipt of disability benefits. And as a result, as you can see from this chart, the gains of these measures have been fairly evenly distributed across the distribution once again. However, the crisis has since worsened, and we have a new government who have announced a new set of packages. So let's get into what they have announced. The first and possibly the largest announcement that we've actually ever seen is the energy price guarantee, which cancels some of the energy prices by capping the price households pay for energy to £2,500 for the next 2 years. This chart shows what would have happened to annual energy bill costs before and after the government had intervened. So the blue line shows what would have happened with just the normal default price cap and the £400 rebate. And then the green line shows what's happened now with the energy price guarantee and the £400 rebate. And the red line shows what the energy price cap cost would be if they had stayed in line with the 2018 and 2021 winter averages. So as you can see, if the new government had not intervened, the typical household bill was due to reach £3,549 from October the 1st, as announced by Ofgem, and then was predicted to increase to £4,586 from January 2023. But now we see that this has been significantly reduced with the energy price guarantee package. However, it doesn't ease all of the pain, as the typical household bill will still be 83% higher than pre-crisis levels. Another significant policy announcement was the cancellation of the national insurance rise. And as you can see from this chart, the gains aren't evenly distributed across the income distribution. In fact, most of the gains of this policy go towards richer households, which is slightly worrying given the scale of the challenge and the fact that low-income households are set to be hit the hardest. So while government measures will provide some relief and offer households some protection over this winter and next, the outlook remains highly uncertain and the crisis is far from over, as inflation is projected to remain high in the coming months. Even with the energy price package, as this chart shows, inflation still remains high at around above 7%. Therefore, it's important that the government continues to provide the vital support to households, especially those on lower incomes. So what are the key takeaways? Well, firstly, a huge energy price shock inevitably makes us all collectively poorer. Luckily, we've been able to delay and mitigate some of the pain, not all, through the regulation and emergency support packages the government has announced over the course of this year. However, as it stands, richer households in the long term will receive more support than the rest. This means that there are likely to be some challenges for family household balance sheets, which are going to be persistent. I'd like to thank the Scottish Economic Society again for inviting me to speak. The Resolution Foundation will be doing much more analysis on the cost of living crisis in the coming months. So feel free to check out our website and our Twitter pages for updates on the latest analysis. Thank you.